Let's look at factoring with the AC method combined with the grouping method. Let's factor 6x squared plus 19x plus 15. The first thing we always want to check for is a greatest common factor, so we need to find the greatest common factor of 6x squared, 19x, and 15. The greatest common factor is 1, so we don't have to factor a monomial out of this expression. And the next thing we need to check for are our coefficients, so we have a is equal to 6, and that's a little different from normal. Usually we have an a is equal to 1, and we have b is equal to 19, and c is equal to 15. We still want to split that b term, 19x, so that we can figure out how to factor by grouping, but it's going to look a little bit different since we have a is equal to 6, which is not 1. When you have a is equal to something other than 1, or even if you have a is equal to 1, you can use the AC method. For the AC method, we need to find two factor pairs that add to b and multiply to AC instead of just multiplying to c. So for this polynomial, we have a is equal to 6 and c is equal to 15. So AC is equal to 6 times 15, which is 90. So in order to split our b term, we need to find numbers that add to b, which is 19, and multiply to AC, which is 90. We'll start by listing the factor pairs for 90. So that could be 1 and 90, 2 and 45, 3 and 30, 5 and 18, 6 and 15, or 9 and 10. And we need to choose the pair of factors that add to 19, so that will be 9 and 10. And these are the coefficients we'll use to split up that 19x. So our expression is equal to 6x squared plus 9x plus 10x plus 15. And then we can split this into two groups. So our first group is 6x squared plus 9x. And our second group is 10x plus 15. Then factoring out the greatest common factor from each of these groups, the greatest common factor between 6x squared and 9x is 3x. So we have 3x times 2x plus 9x divided by 3x is just 3, plus the greatest common factor between 10x and 15 is 5. So we'll factor out 5. 10x divided by 5 is 2x, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. Then we want to identify the common factor between these two terms, which is that 2x plus 3. And then we'll be left with a 3x plus 5 when we factor that out. So we have the quantity of 2x plus 3 times, when we divide that out, we're left with 3x plus 5. And this is the factored form of our original expression. Let's factor the expression 12x squared minus 11x plus 2. The first thing you always need to check for is a greatest common factor other than 1. So we need to find the greatest common factor of each term. So between the 12x squared, the negative 11x, and the 2, which is 1. So we don't need to factor out a monomial. We still want to identify a, b, and c though. So a is equal to 12, b is equal to negative 11, and c is equal to 2. Since a is equal to something other than 1, we'll need to use the AC method in order to find the coefficients we'll use to split our bx term. So we need to find numbers that add to negative 11 and multiply to AC. AC is equal to a, which is 12, times c, which is 2. So AC is equal to 24. And we need to find numbers that multiply to 24 and add to negative 11. Since I'm multiplying to a positive number and adding to a negative number, that means both my factors will be negative. So I could have negative 1 and negative 24, negative 2 and negative 12, negative 3 and negative 8, or negative 4 and negative 6. The pair of factors that adds to negative 11 is negative 3 and negative 8. So these are the coefficients I'll use to split my negative 11x. So my expression is 12x squared minus 3x minus 8x plus 2. Then I can split this into two groups and factor by grouping. So I have the quantity 12x squared minus 3x plus the quantity 8x plus 2. Now I'll factor the greatest common factor from each group. The greatest common factor between 12x squared and minus 3x is 3x. So I have 3x times 12x squared divided by 3x gives me 4x, and negative 3x divided by positive 3x gives me minus 1. Plus, now I'll look at this negative 8x plus 2. The greatest common factor between negative 8x and 2 is 2. So I have 2 times negative 4x plus 1. But when I look at this, I have this negative 4x. I don't want to be left with a negative 4x. I like it when the term with the x is positive. So instead of factoring out a positive 2, I'll want to factor out a negative 2. So I have negative 2 times negative 8x divided by negative 2 gives me 4x, and positive 2 divided by negative 2 gives me minus 1. Now I'll look for the greatest common factor between each of my groups, which is that 4x minus 1. So I can factor out my 4x minus 1, and after I do that, I'm left with 3x minus 2. So the factored form of my original expression is the quantity 4x minus 1 times the quantity of 3x minus 2.